I want to get through this information and get you all some resources and some tools. All right, top of the day, beautiful people. Let's start our conversation here. What happened to you does not hold more power than the narrative you tell about what happened to you. Kawana, happy healing. Samaj, I believe I saw you. Happy healing. Thank you to each and every one of you that are coming in and liking and sharing this conversation. It does matter in the regards of you get to share this information with somebody else. So again, thank you. I'll start our conversation, or I'll open our conversation again. What happened to you does not hold more power than the narrative you tell about what happened to you. Furthermore, you didn't just live through the story or the narrative, you started living by it. My hopes are that these conversations will start to build a deeper understanding for you all. Queen Sagittarius, happy healing to you and welcome to the conversation. Samaj says, hey family, miss y'all so much. My Tuesday nights are boring. Samaj, hey, listen, re-enroll in the April challenge, and then Tuesdays at 8 p.m., Thursdays at 8 p.m., we will all be back together having meaningful conversations, growing and healing again. So you can always re-enroll in the new challenge. Never feel like that is not an option for you. Pup lost his little toy. Let me get that for him, and then we can get to work. Hey, buddy, I'm going to need you to keep this with you, because I'm not going to keep fetching this for the next hour. Beautiful people that are just joining us, we are family here. Six is a part of the family, so we don't exclude him from the conversation. I don't try to put him away. Hopefully that is not a lack of professionalism that runs you off. Let's get to work. You didn't just live through the story or the narrative, you started living by it. Every experience that you've had, every wound, every betrayal, every painful moment, it never just passes through you. It never just happens. It leaves behind something more powerful than the memory or the moment itself. It left a story, a narrative, a personal truth that ends up shaping how you see the world, how you see yourself, and what you expect from your life. The moment that you realize the power is not in the event or the trauma or the thing that was done to you, but the power is in the story or the narrative that you continue to tell because of what happened to you. The moment you can grasp that, you'll understand that you have been the author of your truth all along. Because if in fact it's the narrative that holds the power, not what happened to you, then all along you've been the person scripting the narrative. That is my goal, to give you back that power. Let's start here. Situations are neutral until we assign meaning to it. Yesterday, I gave you all a very profound statement, and that statement was, every situation or circumstance in our life does not come with meaning. It does not come with this is good or this is bad. You assign whether it's good or bad. And then the moment you assign meaning to it, you unconsciously start working to create the reality that meets that meaning. The moment you say that a situation in your life is bad, you unconsciously start working to create the reality that is bad. Unconsciously. How do you do this, coach? Kitsy, happy healing to you and welcome to the conversation. How do I unconsciously start creating the reality to meet the meaning that I've assigned to the situation? So let's say you determine, and we're going to go back to this losing your job thing. Let's say you determine that losing your job is the worst thing that can happen to you. In the moment that you determine that, if it happens, or even before it happens, your belief system starts to dictate your thoughts about what it means if you lost your job. So that means all of the possibilities that could be the outcome of you losing your job are now being dictated by the fact that you believe that this is the worst thing that can happen. So your imagination is limited to only seeing the worst things that can happen because your belief system governs your imagination. So if you believe that losing your job is the worst thing that can happen, your imagination is limited to only showing you what? The worst case scenarios. So every situation in your life, including losing your job, is neutral until you add meaning to it. I'm going to give you all this little analogy story, and then we'll get into the lesson plan. I've told this analogy or this story before about the old gentleman and his son that lives in the farm. This is a more Eastern Asian inspired story, but it goes like this. The old man and his son lives in a farming village, in some remote farming village in the hills of Asia somewhere. And they only have one horse. And while the man is older and his son really tends the horse, and the horse is how they feed their family in this farming village. And while his son is out training the horse or whatever is happening, the horse injures itself. No, the horse runs away. And the villagers comes to the old man and they're like, oh my God, it's a terrible thing that you lost the one horse that fed your family. This is so terrible. And the old man says, I don't know. And a couple of weeks later, the horse returns, and the horse returns with a wild horse. And the people in the village are like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing that could have happened to you. Your horse that ran away, it's returned with another horse. Now your family has two horses, da 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 da. And the old man goes, I don't know. And then another 2 or 3 weeks goes by. The son is out trying to train the wild horse, and he hurts himself, and the whole village goes crazy again. They're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that can happen to you. The one son who supplies, does all the work for your house and your household, he's injured. What are you going to do? And the old man goes, I don't know. A week later, the military comes to this remote village, and they're grabbing all of the sons, all of the able-bodied sons, because the nation is going to war. And they take all of the sons, all the young, strong, able-bodied men in the village, except his son, because his son is injured. And all the people in the village come to him, and they're like, oh my God, you're so fortunate. And this can go on and on and on forever. The point that I'm making is every situation is neutral until you assign meaning to it. But the more powerful point is, after you assign meaning to it, you unconsciously start shaping your reality according to the meaning that you have assigned to it. Let's get back to the lesson plan, and this will develop a little more for you. So what do I mean by everything is neutral until you assign meaning to it? Life happens, but pain lingers, not because of what happened, but because of the meaning that you gave it. How so, coach? Let's go back to this job example that we started with yesterday and that we're continuing to build on. Two people lose their job. One person says, this is a sign that I'm a failure and this is the worst thing that can happen to me. The next person says, this is the opportunity for me to finally pursue my dreams. This is a sign. This is a sign that even though this job is successful and everything is going well, the fact that I lost this job right now and there was no real reason, I didn't do anything wrong, this is a sign that I need to pursue that dream, that one thing that I've always wanted to pursue, and I'm going to go after it with everything that I've got because this is my sign. Same event, same situation, same circumstances, different meaning added to it. The meaning that the person adds to it will determine how they respond. And what do we know about your response when it comes to the outcome of your life? The outcome of your life is not determined by the size of the adversity that you face, but it is determined by your responds. So if in fact the story or the narrative that you attribute to the event dictates your response, then it is the story or the narrative that holds the power. And if you are the one that has the ability to derive from any situation in your life or to create from any situation in your life any narrative that you desire, then ultimately, who's in control? If this is the case, then who's in control of your life? I love this example that Samaj shares. Samaj says, I did it yesterday. My son's dad called. I assume he had an excuse not to get my son. He actually had a question. Same event, radically different stories and radically different outcomes. I'm going to beat this drum until it sounds like a musical to you. A situation is just material. Your narrative is the instruction manual that you tell your mind what to build with the material. The situation is just material. The story or the narrative is the instruction manual that you give your mind as in what to do with the material. Kawana says, so I don't feel guilty about eating out for lunch because I attract. So look, I'll receive the humor, and then I'll raise you with depth. Absolutely true. And I'll go a step further and tell you, as you are going out and having that meal, you are assigning whatever it means to you. So if your operation is, I'm moving like this because I am operating in abundance, then that energy is not only into that action, but that energy is what becomes your Taurus field. It's what becomes your frequency, vibration. It becomes what attracts or repels others from you. Let me give you all this little practical understanding of this when we're talking about energy repelling and attracting things to you. We all have experienced this. You go around a person and watch this. Their attitude automatically tells you if you want to be around them or not. Well, what do you think your attitude is? Your attitude is an outward expression of what you are feeling. Your attitude is just a tangible equation of your energy. Your attitude is just your physical expression of your energy. Positive people tend to have positive attitudes. Negative people tend to have a negative attitude. So if your attitude has the ability from our outward observation, if your attitude has the ability to repel or attract people to you, how much more on the level that we cannot observe, how much more are we energetically attracting and repelling certain energies to us or away from us? All right, let's keep building. I don't want to get stuck here too long. Let me take you all to another analogy that I like to use real quick. The theater analogy. If you think of life as all of us are backstage of a theater, and we're all in this theater school, and each of us are being handed this box of materials, or props, should I say. And you're not told what's in your box of props. You're just given a box of props, and then you're told to take your box, go on stage, and perform the story of your life. I love this analogy, by the way. So we're all backstage, and we're all students in this theater school. And a part of our graduation is we're given a box of props and we're not told what's in the box. And we're expected to go on stage and perform the story of our life. Let me show you a little secret. So nobody gets to see what's in anyone else's box. No one gets to see anyone else's performance. Naila, happy healing to you. Welcome to the conversation. No one gets to see what's in everyone else's box. No one gets to see everyone else's performance. We're all backstage. You get a box. It's blind. You don't know what's in the box. You just have to take the props that are in the box and you have to go on stage and you have to perform the story of your life. Okay? Now, let me give you all some of the behind the scene context so that you can see the fullness of this analogy, the richness of this analogy. Every single person got rocks, bricks, swords, and shields in their box. Everybody did. Rocks, bricks, swords, and shields. Everybody's not going to put on a play that represents war. Some people, even though they got rocks, bricks, swords, and shields, because of who they are and how they perceive their life, they're going to go out there and put on a play that's representative of whatever they feel on the inside. Some of you are going to look in your box and see bricks, rocks, shields, and swords, and automatically go out there and put on a play of war and destruction. I usually land that plane a lot better, but the point that I'm making here is it does not matter what's in the box. You get to create whatever life you want to display on that stage. Your narrative tells you what you can build with the materials in your box. It does not matter what's in the box. Whatever narrative you're operating under is going to determine what you build. For some people, you can give them grenades, firearms, and whatever else, and they will always find a way to tell a love story. It does not matter what you give them. They are gun-ho set on understanding that they are the authors of the story that they're writing. Let's play out this writing analogy a little bit because I feel like we can expand it a little bit, right? So imagine an author who is I write love novels, right? That's what this author writes. They're a love novel author. That's their specialty. It doesn't matter what narrative you give them. They're going to write you a love story. You can say to this author, okay, the scene of your book is World War II in the middle of Europe, and there's a soldier, and whatever narrative you give them, because of the nature of who they are, they're going to produce what aligns with who they are. All right. Here's the reality. No matter what we do, we are always adding meaning. We're always shaping events into a story. It's how our brain remembers things. The thing is, though, that story becomes the dictator of your reality. That story becomes locked into your identity. Ryan says, love you and appreciate what you do to save one and save 100. Beautiful job. Ryan, thank you. It is all of us collectively showing up in these type of spaces and pouring into this community cup that makes these spaces so powerful. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate you for taking a moment to share that word of encouragement. So again, once the meaning is added, it doesn't just stay a thought. It becomes the blueprint that runs your show. Once you determine that if I open this box and I see bricks, swords, rocks, and shields, that means I got to make a play about war. It doesn't matter what you go on that stage and do, your play is going to end up that way. Once you open that box and you say, let me keep building here and I'll show you all something. The narrative that you create in a moment of pain becomes the body that holds your thought, your emotions, your reactions, your memory, and your behavior. I describe this as the 5 elements of how trauma is stored, but I'm breaking it down just into you as an individual. That's why when trauma happens, it doesn't need to keep happening today because it is still affecting your life, because it is stored in your thoughts, your emotions, your behavior. So the 5 elements that I teach are the version of you that went through the event itself, your emotions towards the event, your outward expression of those emotions, and your sentiments towards the person, persons, or the relationships that were involved. Any story in your life are going to involve those 5 elements. Those, let me say it to you like this. Without realizing it, your subconscious operates in every situation that is similar to what you've been through. It operates off of those 5 elements. The story isn't just how you remember the pain, it's how your nervous system expects things to happen. The story is not just how you remember the pain, it's the instructions of how you are telling yourself to respond. Let me show you what I mean. The reason why we focus on healing more than just what happened is because the process has to address what you came to believe because of what happened. We can't just say, hey, you were neglected as a child and now you have this sense of I'm not loved because I wasn't loved as a child. Great. We can go back and just deal with the fact that you weren't loved and you can get love now, because I want to show you something, because this is the reality that many people live in, right? You weren't loved and nourished as a child. So here today, you realize that, oh, that was what was lacking in my life. So now you find you a partner, someone that loves you, someone that cares for you. But there's always this gap where it seems like nothing that you have today is enough to fill the void. The reason being is, it's not just what you recognized as missing in your life today that you need to address. It's the story that you've been telling yourself because you weren't nurtured, because you didn't receive what you wanted to receive. And part of that story for a lot of us is, because I didn't receive that, I am not lovable. Because I didn't get what I was supposed to get, I don't deserve it. And that narrative is now what you are wrestling with in your current relationship. Does that make sense to you all? Ree says, can you please repeat the 5 elements again? Absolutely, Ree. So there are 5 elements to how trauma is stored. And this is important, and I'll show you why each element matters, because I'll go in a little bit deeper, Ree. Thank you for asking. So the first element is the version of you that had the experience. What do I mean by the version of you is stored with the trauma? Because let's say you were 13 and you finally concluded that everybody else got love and I didn't get love. I must not have been getting the love and the nurturing that I needed because I'm not lovable. There's a version of you that believes that you're not lovable because of this event or these experiences. So there's the version of you that went through the event, and then there's the event itself. So when I ask you to tell me about your childhood, you're going to tell me about the person you that went through the experience. You're going to tell me about the event. Then you're going to tell me about how you felt internally, your emotions. Then, without knowing it, you're going to tell me about your outward expression of those emotions. Then you're going to tell me about the person or the persons that were involved, or the relationships that were involved in these 5 elements. That's how trauma is stored. There's the version of you that went through the trauma. There's the event. There are the emotions that you felt. There's the energy, the outward expression of those emotions. And then there's the relationships or your sentiments toward the person or the persons that were involved. Now, what we teach you through the Trauma to Triumph Healing Challenge is The adult you carries the pain, your inner child carries the wound. How these five elements work with that foundation, we go back and we reframe the way that this version of you saw this event. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's go back. You weren't loved and nurtured as a child. This is important, right? I know people get lost here, so I'm going to slow down because I want everybody to follow. There is a reason why we form a limiting belief. When you understand why we internalize a limiting belief, it makes it easier for you to accept that you are operating with a limiting belief. Because many people will wrestle with that. Everybody else in your life can see that you're struggling with this thing, but you won't accept it because accepting it makes you feel weak, smaller. That's also a part of the very thing that we're going to highlight. But the reason you develop the limiting belief in the first place is to stop the pain and suffering. Wait, coach, you mean to tell me that I tell myself that I'm not good enough to stop the pain and suffering? Yes. As a child, that internal conclusion that you're not good enough, that you're not lovable, that you're not worthy, you do that as a means of trying to stop the suffering. I'm going to explain it to you. So let's walk through it. Let's say you're 10. You have parents that are neglectful, they aren't loving, whatever the case may be. Up until this point, you have been trying to earn their love and failing. You have been trying to earn their approval and failing. You have been trying to get their attention and failing. So every time, and I want you to think about this for you as a child, every time you make an attempt to get the love and the nurturing and the things that you want from your caretakers and they let you down, that's another experience of the pain. Sidebar, TikTok got y'all so conditioned to appreciate what you're hearing by liking the screen. If a person doesn't say it, y'all don't like the screen, follow the conditioning. Anyway, so the first part is every time you try to get that approval, that love, that nurturing from the parent, from the loved ones, whomever it is, and every time you don't get it, you experience that pain, that letdown, that disappointment again. Everybody follow there? Put purple hearts in the chat if you follow so far. So, the reason as a child you develop the limiting belief and tell yourself that I am not good enough is so that you can stop seeking the love, the nurturing, the attention, so that you can stop experiencing the constant letdown, the constant pain, the constant disappointment. So the limiting belief that you develop in your formative years is the very first form of protection from the trauma. Are we all on the same page? Purple hearts, that's how we do this back and forth thing that we do. Awesome. Bree says yes. I'm going to go with Bree's answer as she's speaking for the collective. So that's how the limiting belief comes about. Come on, Bree, let's get to some work. Bree says, what does the adult and inner child hold? I have to get a pen. Sorry. It is all good, Bree. I'm sorry, Ree. I appreciate the fact that you're actually trying to capture this information, and I have no problem going back over it for you. The adult carries the pain, meaning, so let me say it first, and then I'll explain the two angles for you. The adult carries the pain. The inner child carries the wound. Think about your life right now. You've felt the pain in your relationships. You felt the pain in your achievements or your lack thereof. You felt all of this pain in your adult life, and you've done everything to run from the pain in your adult life. You've done everything to relieve the pain in your adult life. You've done everything to cope with the pain in your adult life. You've done so many things to try to focus on getting this pain out of your life. But the one thing that many of us have not done, which is the power in trauma to triumph, and what we teach and what our healing challenge is, and what the foundation of my coaching principles are, you have not focused on the version of you that actually went through the experience. If you want to further understand this disconnect between the adult that carries the pain and the inner child that carries the wound, this will help us understand why many of us struggle with, I know what I need to do. I know what the steps are for me to get to my goals, my desires, my dreams, and my aspirations. But for the life of me, I cannot align my thoughts and my behaviors with the thing that I desire. Why? I can't align this struggle. Like, I know that I need to speak up for myself. As in my cognitive, practical adult mind, I know the importance of not letting people take advantage of me. But whenever I'm in a situation, I cannot seem to get myself to do the thing that my adult mind knows that I need to do. Why is that, coach? That's because the adult you carries your desires. The adult you carries the rational understanding that you have, that you know what's right from what's wrong. But that inner child that carries the wound, pay attention, is locked in the 5 elements of how your trauma is stored. What do you mean my inner child is locked in the 5 elements? What did I tell you one of these 5 elements were? The version of you that went through that experience is still holding on to the emotions and is still expressing those emotions towards whomever was in the circumstance or situation towards you. So until we go back to this version, because think about it. If you, in your rational adult mind, if you understand right from wrong, what you need to do, the steps that you need to take, then why can't you click and do it? Something inside of you is not aligned with this rational adult mind that you have. Something is detached. This inner child that does not believe that he or she is worthy of love. I don't care how much you think you deserve the greatest love of your life. This inner child that influences your unconscious behavior and your unconscious thought will always produce a circumstance or an outcome that he or she feels safe with. So until you can find and nurture the wound that your inner child is carrying that says, I'm not worthy of love, every time that you attempt a genuine attempt at love, that inner child is going to self-sabotage that circumstance and situation, because deep down, remember why we developed the limiting belief. Remember why we said we weren't worthy of love. Because deep down, we wanted to stop the disappointment. And every time we tried to get love, we never received it. So what that inner child is telling adult you, this person is trying to get me to be vulnerable again. For me, until you come and nurture me to believe what you believe, vulnerability leads to the pain that I've been avoiding my entire life. So until you and your inner child are integrated and you're making choices and decisions based on an awareness of your inner child wound and your adult desires, there's always going to be that disconnect. Adult you is always I'm going to find the right person. I'm going to be in a healthy relationship. Your inner child that's still carrying your unhealed wound is like, I'm going to avoid everything that makes me vulnerable to be hurt again. I'm going to stay away from people that try to get me to be vulnerable, to be hurt again. I'm going to see every bit of vulnerability as a threat because I have one job: protect us from the pain that we have not yet healed. Does that make sense to you all? Because I feel like I went on a bit of a tirade there. Purple hearts in the chat if that makes sense. And then I'm going to tell you all the good news. Awesome. Thank you, Samaj. Much appreciated. Elizabeth, happy healing to you. Appreciate it. All right, good. Here's the good news. If the story can shape your life and you are the one creating the story from what happened, then you can shape your life. If the story can shape your life and you are the one shaping the story, then you can reshape your life. And that's exactly what we do in Trauma to Triumph. My goal is to help you to identify the old story that you've been living by. It's to help you to uncover the beliefs that were planted in pain and in fear. It's to help you to reframe the experiences with compassion and truth. And most importantly, to show you the one thing that most of us have been running from is accountability. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because people have weaponized accountability to try to punish you for the mistakes that you've made in the past, or people have weaponized accountability as a form of holding you accountable for a wrong. And that's all good and well, but that's not the power of accountability. The power of accountability is that I hold the key to getting myself out of this situation. The power of accountability is that nobody is coming to save me. I am here by my own actions because I am creating the narrative from what happened to me. If you just break away from this idea that your life is the way that it is because of what happened to you, that's your victim mode. That's your I don't have any power mode. My life is the way that it is because of my mother's actions, my father's actions, my mother's inabilities, my father's inabilities, my father's failures, my mother's failures, this person's abuse of me, this person's way that they treated me. All of that puts all of the power in the hands of whomever you say is responsible for where you are. Because that is the story. Do you see? I'm not saying that the thing has anything to do with you being at fault. What I'm showing you is what you say about the story is what's dictating your life, not the thing. So even if it was the assault, right? Because that is a very personal thing. It is a very strong and hard thing for us to get over, especially if you were SA'd at some point in your life. So we're not minimizing that. We're not shrinking that. We're not trying to downplay that experience. But what I'm trying to do is give you back what was taken from you by showing you that it is not the act of the SA that was done to you that may be keeping you stuck right now in your life. It's the story that you tell yourself, because watch this. Let me just propose another narrative. Yes, I was taken advantage of at some point in my life, but that thing that was done to me did not destroy me. Whatever was done to me did not write the final chapters of my life, because even though I went through that, I am still here today. I am whole. I am in my right mind, and I have the ability to choose the life that I want to live. And despite what happened to me, I'm going to choose a life that is filled with light, love, and prosperity and abundance. Despite what happened to me, I am going to learn how to love again, and I am going to love myself first so that I only allow people in my life that will follow the example that I lay down. I love me in such a way that is the standard. That's a proposed narrative that you can tell from somebody that has been in that situation. That's an option. Do you see that that's your option? And watch this. If you're sitting somewhere right now and maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, that's not an option for me because that's the wrong story. Whatever you just said, the reason why you can't just rewrite the story however you want to, that's your current story holding you in a headlock. Because what's stopping you? What's stopping you from saying that even though they didn't love me, I am still living filled with love, and I'm going to produce and create a life for myself that is filled with people that do love me today? What's stopping you from saying that even though they abandoned me as a child in my formative years, I am still able to create the life that I want, and my life is filled with people who want to be here? What's stopping you from saying, even though they weren't there for me, I make sure that I'm there for the people that mean the world to me today, because I'm not going to repeat the same pains that were done to me? What's stopping you from rewriting that story? Nothing. Don't even let your brain create a false adversary for you. Nothing is stopping you from rewriting the story. It doesn't matter what happened to you. There is someone right now that is a paraplegic that is living a life that is not only filled with abundance, but if you saw the way that they live, you would look at your own life and go, what is wrong with me? There's someone right now that is living with HIV, and the way that they're living their lives is so filled with light and love that you will look at your little complaints and think to yourself, what is possibly wrong with me? Because they are creating the narrative after the event, because that's what matters. There's someone right now that is getting a cancer diagnosis, and they're telling themselves right now in that doctor's office, my life is over. And here's the key of this entire conversation about your narrative. The moment that that person says my life is over because of this diagnosis, they will subconsciously start ending their own life to meet the meaning that they've added to this moment. They will subconsciously start giving up on certain areas of life. They will subconsciously start giving up on the potential for love, for fulfillment, in however long they have to live, because subconsciously they've already given their body and their mind the instructions on how to respond to this situation. Do you understand that your story or your narrative is the instruction? Your story or your narrative is the instruction that you tell your mind on how to respond to what happened to you. So if you were that person that went through that SA situation, what is your story? If your story is, oh my God, this was done to me, they took this from me, they took that from me, they violated me, and now I'm this, I'm that because of what happened to me, that's the story you're telling. And that's the reality that you are subconsciously creating so that the story is true. One of the things that they say about the ego that I want you to understand is universally true. The ego will fight to be right. So whatever it is that you believe, not only will the ego fight to be right, but the ego will selectively find only the evidence that support your belief. Y'all not hearing me. So if you believe that everything is working out for your good, your ego and your subconscious mind has the power to only see the red Porsche. Y'all know, you know we can't get through a conversation without the red Porsche analogy. So someday in the future, if you all see me driving a red Porsche, don't think like, oh my God, Coach Kohn has made it and now he went out and bought a red Porsche. Just know that I'm only driving the red Porsche to confirm this beautiful analogy that I've been using for all these years. All right, let's keep working. Jimmy says confirmation bias. Absolutely. What you believe, your subconscious mind is biased to produce to you or show to you only the things that support your belief. Let me show you the power of your belief. You'll fight with somebody to hold on to the belief that is not serving you. You may not be able to change the past, but you can change what the past means to you. I can't change what happened in my childhood, but I changed what it meant to me. I can't bring back my beautiful son. I can't change that he's no longer here, but I changed what it meant to me. It used to mean I failed as a father. It used to mean that I failed to protect his life. It used to mean that something went wrong. It used to mean that I did not complete the mission. It used to mean that he's gone. His essence, his legacy, it's all over. And then I realized that I had the pen of authorship, even to a life that was no longer physically here. I could still define what his loss meant to me. I could write the narrative. See, it could have been 16-year-old kid shot and murdered in Washington, D.C. Father lost his life sometime after in a drunken car accident. It could have been 16-year-old kid loses his life in Washington, D.C. Father arrested short time after pursuing vengeance. It could have been 16-year-old kid loses his life in Washington, D.C. Father, short time after, takes his own life, unable to bear the weight of feeling a sense of failure, left a letter of pain to his family or whatever. It could have been any of those narratives. I could have continued to live under the narrative that I failed. Somehow I didn't do all that I could have done, and I could have continued to live under that prison. But I saw that I had the pen of authorship, and I decided to write the narrative that said 16-year-old kid shot down in Washington, D.C. Father responds to the community and calls for peace in his friends and within the community. Father goes on to build a platform to help other parents and those out there that are struggling from pain and trauma. Father goes on to create a platform to help other people to find peace at a time when he needed it the most. Father uses the pain and the loss of 16-year-old son to build a legacy of 16-year-old son, build a legacy in his honor that continues to help teenage children to avoid the pitfalls of life that his 16-year-old son too experienced. What a beautiful story. You know why that story is so beautiful? Because I'm writing it. It could have been a tragic story if I allowed my pain to write it. It could have been a tragic story if I allowed my own trauma to write it. It could have been a tragic story if I allowed fear to write it for me. But I recognize that the outcome is not determined by what happens to me, but it's determined by how I respond. The power is not in the thing that happened. The greatest loss in my life was losing my son, but the outcome was not in that I just experienced the greatest loss in my life. The outcome was in how I responded. I'm simply trying to show you that you've always had the power, that no matter where your life is right now, the moment you snap out of it and realize, shoot, I'm here because I'm writing a story that will continue to put me here. Some of you keep repeating the same cycle in your life, thinking that this thing is happening to you because of outside forces, when the reality is you're repeating the story that you keep telling. They did this to me, they did that to me, that's why my life is this way. You're going to keep repeating that. This happened to me, that happened to me, that's why this keeps happening to me. It's going to keep happening to you. You are the what's the show? The little the purple marker? I forget the cartoon. Somebody knows it out there. But everything that he drew with the marker comes to life. That's you. That's an analogy. They hide the truth of spirituality right in the simple things. That's an analogy that what you author with your mind and your belief, listen to me, what you author with your mind and your belief, that's the power of the purple pen. It's not just that the pen had power. It's not come on. It wasn't the pen that held the power. It was his belief that held the power. You can't change the past, but you can change what the past means to you. Blues Clues, that's what it is. Come on, Angie. Blues Clues. What we teach you in Trauma to Triumph is not how to erase what happened. That's not healing. That's not real. What we're teaching you is to take that purple marker and start rewriting the story so that it doesn't control what happens next. That's the power. That's the power. We didn't choose the pain that was handed to us. But the story, that's the accountability right there, y'all. I didn't choose the pain that was handed to me, but the story, that's my doing. And what I'm trying to show you is it's not the thing that's dictating your pain today. It's your story. You think it's the thing. It's not, because the thing is not happening to you right now. Do you get that? Like, just on a practical level, the abuse is not happening to you right now. So where is the pain coming from? The story. Because every time I think about it, I only think about the 5 elements of how I stored that trauma. The story of how I currently see it happening to me, the emotions that I feel, the outward expression of those emotions. That's my experience right there. It's the story. If this is hitting home for you, it's because you're ready. It's clicking for you. Our challenge is open right now. What we're going to offer you is 12 weeks of guided healing method. We're going to give you a weekly coaching tools, and you're going to get community, because the power of our coaching or our healing challenge is not that I'm coming with 20 years worth of wisdom. It's not that we're going to ship you this workbook that is going to give you all of the elements that you're going to need, but the power of it really is in our masterclass. When we all get together and we actually start to watch this method that I'm teaching you work live on you and on the other participants. It's one thing for me to tell you, hey, come to me. I'm going to use the skills that I've learned over 20 years to help you reach a healing goal. That's what most people do, because then you become dependent upon me and what I know. Trauma to Triumph is different. We are going to teach you this healing method so you can become self-dependent. Why? Because we know one thing. Nobody is coming to save you. The power is not in me. The power is in you. My job is to simply awaken that truth inside of you. That's why we're going to teach you the method, because this whole thing is about getting you to realize that you have always been everything at your core. It is all within you. What we do with Trauma to Triumph, and I'm so proud of this, because I'm not trying to help you create a new person or turn into a new person or become a new person. We're not adding anything to you. We're not trying to fix something. This method is based on this. We're removing the lie. Because the moment that I can remove the lie, the moment that we can dismantle the limiting belief, you have no choice but to see the person that you have always been. Do you understand that part of why many of us are stuck is because when we look back and we think of ourselves, we only see the description of how somebody else has said or how someone else has described us. We only see ourselves through the lens of the person that neglected us. We only see ourselves through the lens of the person that abused us. We see ourselves a certain way because of what they did to us, and that is the lie. So the moment we remove that lie, you're no longer filtered through the way that you see yourself. Many of you look in the mirror and you can only see the victim of your abuser. You don't see the powerful person that survived it. You don't see the person that has the potential to be greater than what happened to them. You don't see the person that can rewrite the story of what happened to you into power. That's why we call it Trauma to Triumph. It's turning pain into purpose, turning pain into power, because this whole process is teaching you a foundational spiritual principle. This thing right here is like a conductor. It transmutes energy. That's all this thing does. Your emotions are information and energy. When that emotion wells up, you can turn it into something else. Join us on this journey as we give you a lifetime skill, not just temporary relief. I want to touch on something really quick. Let me check the calendar. All right, we got time. I promised you all that we would have this conversation from a political perspective. I want to show you all the power of narratives and how stories and narratives are used to not only divide us, but to control us all. I'm not sitting here having a conversation with you about left or right. I'm showing you how each of us are being puppeteered. Regardless what side you think you're on, you are part of the puppet show. And they use stories and narratives. Let me show you. Many of us think that the way that the powers that be control our lives is through these direct methods, or they're trying to do this, or they're trying to do that, or the main method by which they use is fear. Because fear, listen to me carefully, fear does not need facts. You can crop this, post it on your social media to start meaningful conversation. Listen to what I'm about to say to you. Fear does not need facts. Fear just needs a story. And whoever tells the story wins. You don't need facts when you're pushing fear. You just need a good story. Politicians don't win people over with facts. They win you over with a narrative. You're not safe. Those people over there are the reason you're not safe. Your life is not well off. Those people over there are the reason. Those group of people are coming for you. If you don't follow us and support us, you're going to lose everything. These are not policies that these people are offering to you. You're not moved necessarily by policy. These are stories designed to bypass your logic and tap into something much more stronger that influences you. Fear. Because fear doesn't need facts. Fear just needs a story. I'm going to show you all something here. The fastest way to create loyalty is not, bear with me. The fastest way to create loyalty is not through good deeds or doing good with people. I'm about to show you all some of the tactics that are used on us. The fastest way to build loyalty is not doing good by people. I'm not suggesting that this is how you live your life, but I'm going to show you the movements that happen that control us. The fastest way to build loyalty is fear. Why? Because fear makes people desperate. And desperation depletes your discernment and your critical thinking. The fastest way to build loyalty is through fear, because fear builds desperation. And desperate people operate with lower discernment and critical thinking. That's why fear is their tactic. Let me prove to you that fear lessens everything that you think your guard or your protective mechanisms are. Let me show you how extreme fear is powerful. Myron Goldman is a gentleman that I've taken a few of his courses. Love his content as far as what I do, right? Myron tells this analogy about free money on the streets. It was such a powerful analogy. I'll share it with you all here. If someone was standing on a street corner saying, hey, I got a free $20 bill, whoever wants $20, free $20, 90% of us would walk past that person and think they're scamming, they're crazy, or something's wrong with whatever they're offering. Let me get away from that person. True or false? True or false? You wouldn't go near a person, most of you wouldn't go near a person that's just standing on the street corner saying, hey, free $20 bills, I got $100 bills for whoever want it, right? But watch this. If you were walking down the same street and you heard somebody honking a horn behind you and you turned your head to look, and then when you turned back around, you ran into like a pole or a street sign and you had a gash over your head and that gash was painful and bleeding, that same person that was just offering you the money that you wouldn't stop and talk to, if that person ran up like, oh my God, here, man, take this, put this over your eye. Would you have time enough to think about what they've done with that handkerchief, where that handkerchief has been, what they want, or would you just take it and put it over that gash so that you can stop the bleeding? You'd grab his, what my man J.C. Wolf said, you'd grab it pretty fast, J.C. Wolf. You know why? Because in the moment of your pain, you become desperate. If y'all don't understand how they get us collectively as a society of people to be manipulated against our own best interests, listen to what I'm saying. If they manufacture pain, y'all not listening to me, it's cool. I'll just keep talking because one day this will pop up on YouTube and somebody will go, a bunch of people has been saying this. This guy was just a part of the people who've been talking about it. Listen to me. If they manufacture pain, think of all the ways that they manufacture pain. We become desperate collectively. When we become desperate, they suggest all kinds of things that we don't take enough time with our discernment and our critical thinking to objectively look at. We just go along with it out of our desperation. If I tell you you're in danger and I'm the only one who can save you, you will follow me anywhere. If I told you right now, watch this. If I told you right now that I have developed the method over 20 years of studying trauma, human suffering, spiritual foundations from around the world, I've developed a method that can help you to unpack all of your childhood trauma for your lifetime. Not that I can teach you something that you can learn and do and then you'll be fine, but that I can teach you a skill that you can have with you for the rest of your life. Many of you will sit here and look at me and go, oh, that's great. Because positivity doesn't move us like negativity does. All right, let me show you all the narrative manipulation and how it's everywhere in our system. How do we get manipulated with the narrative? It starts with the news. It happens on social media. It happens when we listen to the politicians speak. Most importantly, the us versus them messaging. This is how the narrative is presented to us. But here's the scariest part. We start believing the narrative. Brooklyn Girl Diaz, happy healing to you. We start believing the narrative, and once you believe it, listen to me carefully. This is where most of this country and this nation and people are right now. Once you start believing the narrative, your brain starts filtering out anything that contradicts it. Tell me I'm lying. There are people right now that are so bought into a specific narrative that even though the thing that is happening is against their own best interest, they will fight you tooth and nail because what you're saying contradicts the narrative that they've bought into. Many of you don't even understand that spells never went away. If that's too spiritually deep for you, I completely understand. You can tap out of this part of the conversation. Spells never went away. The people that were telling you that those people were practicing spells so they needed to be burnt at the stake, all they did and all they were doing was making sure that their spells were the only ones that were operative and working across the world. Spells never went away. Many of us are still under a spell today. Once you believe you are the most loyal protector of your own misery, there are people right now that if you try to explain to them how something is hurting them, they will fight you so that they can hold on to the thing that is causing their own misery. Why? Because that's the power of stories and narratives. That's a spell. The story and the narrative becomes the spell. Now watch this. Let's bring this whole thing back down to you and ask yourself. Let's shrink this whole big political narrative down to just your life, and let's exclude politics for 2 seconds and ask yourself, who told you what success should look like? Who told you what kind of people can be trusted in your life? In your family, outside your family, in your community? Who made you believe that certain dreams were unrealistic in your life? Most of your personal limits didn't come from you. Most of the things that leave us stuck or that leave us in a space where we can't function freely, they came from a narrative that someone else handed to you. And just like with politics, once you believe it, you'll defend it, even if it's hurting you. I was telling someone the other day that, hey, listen, it's not the thing that happened to you that's leaving you stuck. It's the story that you're telling because of it. And this person fought with me for quite some time so that they could hold on to the narrative that was not serving their own best interest. But doing this work, I understand why, because familiar feels safer than the unknown. You know what's crazy? Most of the times, the stories in our life that keep us limited, that keep us small, that keep us restricted, are the stories that we are most loyal to. They're the stories that we've been loyal to the longest. And that's why I always tell my clients, even after we get past the psychological breakthrough, where you see that you are the one creating the narrative that has been producing the outcome that you are terribly wanting to change, there's still a mechanical part of this mind that you need to then recondition, because those narratives that you've held on to have seeped into your operation so deeply that it is an ongoing process of unpacking. That's why we teach you a skill instead of making you come and sit with me to help you reach a goal, because healing is not a destination. And even though we say it's a journey, what it really is a skill that you learn to master. And if I never teach you the skill, but I make you come to me to get the outcome, I've mastered the skill and you're dependent upon me. That that creates the exact situation that you've been in most of your life, waiting for somebody else to come and rescue you. In the middle of the night, in the midst of your storm, you don't want to be looking around, oh, I need to call my coach, or I need to take a pause, sit back to all the tools that I've been taught through this healing method, and I need to start applying them to my life right now and in the midst of this storm. That's power. And that's what we want to remind you that you've always had. I'm not giving you the power. I'm just reminding you that it's always been there with you. Most of us have been sold a story about our identity. We've been sold a story about our limitations, and we've been sold a story about our potential. But my question is, who wrote that story? The trauma isn't just what happened. It's not just the thing. The ongoing pain, it's the narrative it created. That's why we don't just cope with trauma here. That's why we don't just teach you how to deal with it. We reprogram that narrative. So if I ask you some basic questions, let's start here. What did you come to believe about yourself because of what happened to you? I remember a client said it in such a profound way. She said, if I was lovable, they would have loved me. That statement made me so happy. Why? Because I understood the power of what we have created with trauma to triumph. Because our program takes you right to the core of that statement. If I was lovable, they would have loved me. That's the lie. There's a version of that client that went through an event. That version of their client went through an event, an experience, a traumatic event that created an emotion of abandonment, or an emotion of a lack of love, or whatever it was. That emotion created an outward expression of it, however they reacted to it. And then that experience dictated the relationship that they have, or the sentiments that they have towards somebody. But most importantly, out of this came a story. I am not lovable because they didn't love me. If I was lovable, they would have loved me. As if their inability is my life sentence. As if their inability to love put a permanent stamp on my reality. Do you see that? That's the story. That's the power of the story. I am not lovable becomes the story from an event that I didn't get loved. The event that you didn't get loved no longer holds power. It's the I am not lovable that now drives your life. And what we're going to teach you is, let's fix this part right here. And let's not fix it as in, oh, you don't need to believe. No, let's not even do the woo-woo stuff. Let's get to the core of what part of you believes this. And why do you believe this? What is the root of the story that produces this belief? Let's get to that, and let's reframe that. Because a simple reframe is, if they were not capable of loving genuinely, does that still mean that you're not lovable? Naila, are you still here? If Naila is here, Naila was able to capture an analogy that I used, and she highlighted it. And I was like, Naila, we got to bookmark that one. The analogy was this. I said, if you go to a store and they have water, you clearly see that water is available, and you are dying of, not dying, but you're extremely thirsty, and they have water, and you ask them for water, and they refuse to give or sell you water. Does that mean that you don't deserve water? No, 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 no. Don't run through it. Let it sit for a second. Think about it. Because they did not or would not give you what you wanted, does that mean you didn't deserve it? So let's do this real quick, right? Let's leave that thought there because I just saw something in the comments that I think is powerful, will allow us to explore something. So Ree says, I wonder what story the person told themselves to SA someone. Ree, so I'm going to show you something in doing this work. And I think you said you're also going after your master's in counseling. So this is great for you. And we have a couple of people that are in our Trauma to Triumph Healing Challenge that are in the field. And as you stated earlier, this is new information to them. But let me address that. I wonder what story the person told themselves to SA someone. Doing this work for as long as I had, Ree, I can almost tell you that most of the people that operate in being the abusers are operating from their own trauma. Watch this. This is why we must heal and why we must make healing a common thing in all cultures and communities. Because if that abuser was in an environment where their healing was nurtured, we could have broke the cycle. That's how trauma and generational trauma is passed down, and we call it generational curses. We often look at the person that's doing the abusing without any perspective. Why? Because they're an abuser, and I think we should. But if we're going to explore these types of questions, then it leads us to this other window that's how trauma works. So watch this, Ree. The person who we now are identifying as the victim in your statement, I wonder what story the person told themselves to SA someone. Now we're talking about the someone who got SA'd, right? If that person who got SA'd does not find a space in their life where they can find some sense of healing, some environment or space to make sense of what happened to them so that they can get out of that space mentally, spiritually, and energetically, they are likely to become an abuser themselves. And then you know what we will say? When the someone in your statement sexually assaults someone else, we're going to ask the exact same sentence. I wonder what was going through their mind when they SA'd someone. And we can keep writing that sentence until we stop and go, there is not an actual thing that is naturally flowing through a person's mind. It's normally their trauma dictating to them what they're doing and how they're operating. In the same way that most of us are sitting here now recognizing that our trauma has been dictating to us what we've been doing and how we've been operating through our lives. Reese says, so I am breaking the cycle of learning, healing my own trauma, and then teaching. Absolutely. That's the only way we break the cycle. Let me help you all understand something. Thank you, Ree, for sharing and for engaging with me in this part. Parents right now, and I wanna highlight something because this is empowering for you. Many of us, and I'm gonna say us, many of us on this healing journey are able to recognize the trauma that we caused our children. You're responsible for helping them to find their way to healing. And I don't mean like you're responsible because of what you did to them. I mean it in this way. You're responsible to exemplify what healing, true healing looks like. The most powerful thing that you can offer children that you have caused trauma to is to heal and be accountable. And I'll offer you this. Just because you have healed and you're willing to be accountable does not mean they have healed and they're willing to receive your apology. Right? So what we have to live in the space is, I am ready through my own healing to seek forgiveness, but I also respect that you must go through your own process in order to receive my forgiveness. Whole nother conversation. Let's keep building though. So those are the two questions that I want you all to really think about. What did you come to believe about yourself because of what happened? And how has that belief been influencing your entire life? Write those down. Ponder on that. What did you come to believe about yourself because of what happened? And how has that belief been influencing your entire life? This is the work, y'all. This is the work that we do in Trauma to Triumph. This is what the Healing Challenge is about. When you change the story, you can change the direction of your life. Here's the truth. If the world or your past has been shaping your story, that's fine, because many of us have been there. But it's time for you to take back that pen, and that's why we built this program. Inside the 12-week experience, we don't just talk about trauma. We don't just talk about healing. I don't just tell you all the stuff that I know. The point is, we teach you how to identify the narrative. We teach you how to reframe it. And then we teach you how to reclaim your power. Absolutely. Reese says shadow work. That's the foundation of this work. So if you're interested in joining us on the Trauma to Triumph healing journey, on this healing challenge for the April, it's three months. So I think June or the end of June is when we'll be going through. You're going to get 12 weeks of guided processes. You're going to get weekly coaching and support. You're going to get our workbook that we're going to express ship to your door, and you're going to learn a healing method that teaches you how to heal yourself. Christina, hey, I didn't even see you jump in here. Happy healing to you, ma'am. Haven't seen you in a while. Christina actually completed our challenge in January, and she can tell you how amazing that challenge is and the impact that it had on her life. Again, if you are interested, doors will be closing soon for the April challenge. We leave the challenge open between week 4 and week 6. Right now, we're in week number 2, so there's still space for you to enroll. You can still use the promo code FIRMDECISION2025 to save an additional $200 on your enrollment. If you still have some questions, but you're seriously considering joining this challenge with us and starting your journey, at this point, you can send me a direct message here on TikTok, or you can message me through our email if you're watching us on YouTube. We do this challenge 4 times a year. So no matter when you're hearing this message, there's likely a Trauma to Triumph healing challenge happening right now. You can go to our website at happyhealin.com and simply look for the Trauma to Triumph healing challenge. For those of you joining us on YouTube, it's been great having you all as a part of this conversation. I just want to give you all these closing remarks. You are not the opinion that they gave you. You are not the fear that they sold you. You are not the story that you inherited. But you are whatever you write these remaining chapters to be. It's up to you. I love you all. I thank you all for being a part of this conversation. Again, if you're interested in being a part of the Trauma to Triumph Healing Challenge, you can check out the information in the link tree in my bio, or you can simply go to our website by checking out the description of this video. As always, please do like and subscribe to the page if you're joining us on YouTube. Turn on your notifications so they can ring your bell whenever we post new content. I love you all and happy healing.